welcome to The Buzz. I'm Lorelai.
And I'm Jackson. And hey, Lorelai.
What's up?
Can you tell me what
Where did you get cards from?
Can you don't question it. Can you tell me what this is?
It's a card, Jackson.
Can you tell me what suit that card is?
I think it's a spade.
What is the name of the card?
It's an ace of spades.
Oh, it's an ace of spades. Oh,
Yeah.
You know what? I suddenly remember something that we have an interview with a certain man named Ace.
And you couldn't have just said that. You had to pull out a card.
No, that's too simple.
Okay.
Honestly, though, I'm very excited. He's joining us today in The Buzz. I'll be interviewing him because he's awesome. Also, Lorelai, do you remember anything about a little bit of a bin auction going on?
I do. Yeah, there's a trash can. We're decorating trash cans here at Leia.
They're awesome. They're beautiful. Check them out on our website. 10 of them going up on auction to beautify your curb. Well, hello, Mr. Ace Ward. It's very nice to have you in the studio today. First of all, just thank you so much for coming on the show. Seriously.
Thanks for inviting me.
Every single person here is so appreciative of you taking the time to do this for us.
I mean, I'm really here for Joni because she's my absolute favorite person in the whole world.
Absolutely. Best person ever.
How was that?
That's great.
Okay.
She approves. Anyway, so Mr. Ace Ward.
You don't have to call me Mister.
Well, someone of your extreme success and popularity, I must address formally.
I think you're exaggerating.
All right, fine. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experiences? Maybe give us a little background and overview of what you do.
I can do that if the folks out there are willing to be bored for a few minutes, but we'll give it a go.
I hope they're not bored. This is super interesting.
Okay. I am a freelance audio engineer. I have slowed down a bit in my older years, but I've been dealing with sound and live music and live audio in some manner for since I was 17 years old, and I'm a lot older than that now.
So to say that you're a veteran would be an understatement.
Yes.
Ton of experience.
I've had time where I stepped away from it, but
yeah, you just need to
always fall back into it. It's like the mafia; you can't get out of it, really.
Once you're in the family, you're never out.
That's right. But I've been a production manager and a tour manager also, which is it gets me away from the actual audio console, which is what you use to mix audio. But mostly I'm just a guy that tries to make things sound good for the people that are listening to it in a live situation. What's that?
You just love hearing pretty sounds.
I try to make them pretty. I mean, because there's a lot of times when they come out, they're not that good.
Way more complicated of a job than you would think.
It can be. I mean, we have a saying in the business where I'm not going to really say it, but if it's garbage coming in, it's going to be garbage coming out. And my job is to somehow improve that. So sometimes you just can't, but you try your best. So, and in that, I'm mostly referring to live music, because I also do sound at conventions and seminars and meetings, which is, truthfully, that's what I'm spending most of my time on now. Well, once they come back after this pandemic, because that's where the money is.
It's been very hard. Yeah,
I haven't worked really in since the pandemic started. My last conference gig ended March. I want to say it was March 13th of last year.
So a lot of complications.
Yep.
Not only with the love-hate relationship with what you do, but also complications of things that are completely out of your hands.
Right.
Actually, talking about that relationship, what's involved in your work? A lot of people don't understand what actually goes into that kind of process for being a manager or editing actual music. It's one of those things that most people just don't know anything about.
Being a production manager or a tour manager and actually mixing live music is two totally different things. Hence the name manager in there.
People.
When you're a tour manager, and I have good friends who are way up there in the level that they do this type of work, where I have a good friend of mine whose journey's front of house sound engineer, has been for quite a few years. Before that, he was with Art. I have friends who are tour managers who have been with major acts all over, but I've had my time tour managing, and that is basically handling the business end of when the artist, whoever that could be, is on the road. So I was with Dr. John a few years back before he passed away, and so I was the guy getting paid from the venue when we would perform there. I would pick up the check, I'd make sure everything was okay. I checked us into hotels, I made sure I checked us into flights. By us, I mean Dr. John, the band, the crew that traveled with us. So that was kind of like, well, that was a pleasure to work with him. I've worked with others too, but it's almost like babysitting. You got to make sure everything's put together.
In line, perfect. Everybody's where they need to be.
Mm-hmm. And then you get to the venue where you're playing that evening, and the crew really gets the stage ready, gets the sound check going.
The backbone.
Yeah, they mix the show. Whereas I'm handling whatever business. I'm looking at my computer, looking to the next show the next day to make sure we're all checked in for our flights, or if we're on a bus, make sure my bus driver's happy. I basically, when I was a tour manager, didn't really do a whole lot with the live show. It was just getting them there, getting them out, and making sure the money is...
And then doing the math.
Yep. Handing over the expense sheets to management.
Was it like in the movies where they have one of the bill hats and they're sitting in front of one of the typewriters just constantly spitting out information?
I had one of those machines with me, yeah.
Wow, really?
No.
Oh. I've always wanted to see one of those.
But I mean, when I do sound, it's whether it's a live band, I walk in and get the stage ready to go, and we do a sound check, and I try and make them sound good, and hopefully make the musicians happy too.
I've heard that connections between doing sound design, feeling something like whenever you freestyle something on an instrument that you play, you just feel with it and flow with it, and something is produced that you liked, where it's just like you hear what's going on and you can feel things that could be changed, and you start changing with the details, and you go, oh, I like this, and oh, well, I like that. Just like how a musician might play a few chords in a row and be like, and then it goes back and maybe plays some different ones, maybe uses some different fingerings, and then soon enough he has an entire song.
Yeah.
Like an art piece.
Mm-hmm. So, well, what I do, I mean, I'm the guy that just has to make sure whatever he's doing is heard. That's my mission.
Balance.
So, yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody's seen, whether it's a huge concert or whatever, you see a guy sitting out in the middle of the crowd with this big console.
It's so much more work than you would actually.
Yeah, and then there's the lighting guy usually sitting behind them on a higher riser if you're at an arena or something like that.
Which must be an awesome view, too.
It is pretty cool, and it generally sounds decent there, too.
Really?
Because the sound guy is mixing for himself.
Oh, yeah, that's actually
he can't... When you're in a big show, and now with technology, in a smaller show, you can take an iPad and walk around the room and mix on it. It's
got plenty of
networked to wirelessly to the main console. So you can walk around and listen. But in a big show, the sound guy can't really do that. His system engineer will walk away and listen and could possibly make changes if they have a good working relationship. But the band sound engineer is going to sit there. So he's listening to the PA coming at him. He's making the changes for him. It's basically you mix. If you think it sounds good and you're a good engineer, it should sound good to everybody else. There's always going to be people complaining.
I mean, yeah, because everybody has their own opinions.
Right.
Music is one of those things where it's a media that can be completely bended to mold to anybody's favorite thing or favorite sound or genres. Right. I mean,
and we laugh about it where, other sound engineers go to concerts and all they do is critique the engineer's mix.
It's like
I could do that better.
It's like when the in-laws come in town.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice to see you. Did you guys sweep?
But yeah, we'll sit there and we'll hear things we might do differently, but I've heard a lot of good engineers mix shows where I kind of go, wow, I wish I was that good, So there's plenty engineers out there that are just top of their game and kind of legendary, So we all know their names as in our business.
Obviously, that kind of world is very complex and a very huge mixture, and definitely not something that anybody would just walk into a position for. And I've heard plenty of different stories from plenty of different peoples, all with different kind of like backgrounds or inspirations or reasonings why they got into, like, say, sound design or specifically tour directing. I've interviewed some people who do sound design. But what I want to know is how you specifically got into that. What was the spark?
When I was a kid, and I would... I just liked music, just like everybody else.
Yep.
And growing up in New Orleans, it was kind of, back then,
everywhere.
It was kind of easy to sneak into clubs underage.
Yes.
I was listening to rock music. I'll be honest, I don't really listen to New Orleans music. I've mixed a ton of it. I have a ton of friends that play it. And it's fine and good, but I grew up listening to Led Zeppelin.
My dad's the same exact.
Stuff like that. That was my influence to
classic rock.
Yeah, exactly. But back then it wasn't classic. It was
not
current.
Yet. It was current.
But so I would go, not sneak in, but it was kind of easy to get into clubs underage.
See the bands
and see these live bands, just local bands. And I was always kind of interested in the equipment aspect of it.
Not really like playing?
No.
More of, I wonder how that works.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the engineer kind of.
What does all this stuff do? Why do they need all this?
It's like the boy who takes apart clocks eventually comes to build.
And I one day there was a band playing. My family belonged to a small country club in Metairie, Lakeside Country Club, Bucktown. And we had something there for the kids, a dance or something, and there was a band playing there, and I started talking to their sound guy. And he said, well, if you really want to learn something, come to where we practice, and I'll teach you.
Where, really?
Yeah. And I was a kid, I was like 16 probably, and his name was Mike Eskandel. And one of the smartest people I ever met, and probably the one guy who taught me more than anyone else right off the bat.
I like this guy already.
And he was great. He was kind of a lunatic, and he wasn't old. He was just a couple years older than me, but he knew a ton. And I went up to this room where the band kept their equipment and where they rehearsed. And the first thing he taught me how to do was how to solder a cable.
Really?
Put the end on a cable.
That was the first thing he did.
He said, if you're going to start, you're going to start at the beginning. And he taught me how to do it. He taught me how to make a guitar cord, regular quarter-inch cable, and how to make a mic cable.
It reminds me of all the different times when I was younger that my dad would just like come into the house at random times in the day and be like, "Hey Jackson, can you come outside and help me with something?" And we walk into the garage and my dad would have like his truck torn apart and be like, "Yeah, can you put this wrench on that nut right there?" And I'd be like,
That's funny.
when the lights go down in the city. Anyways, so like I was saying, my dad would bring me out into the garage, and it wasn't the fact that we were doing things together, it was the fact that we were doing things and getting things done that got me interested in engineering. Like at first I saw it like, my dad's making me do stuff, but I mean, I was a little kid, who can expect? But later on I came to appreciate it and be like, wow, look at how much goes into just a single part for something, and every single vehicle is unique and things. And that got me really interested in the engineering aspect of so many different things.
That's the same thing. Once I started learning about cables and how the signal goes down the cable to the mixing board, and Mike Eskandel was the guy. Mike passed away. He actually unfortunately got killed in a motorcycle accident.
Oh.
But once I started seeing the big picture, it's like, you see how everything...
You saw one part, and then eventually you saw them all.
Yeah, and then you start putting them together.
I saw a gasket, then I saw the entire engine block.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you keep digging into it, and Mike taught me how to... Like, at first, I started lugging lugging equipment for that band, and Mike was showing me how to mix. And then he actually was going to move on to a different band, and I was going to take his place.
Really?
It was supposed to be like, not for another year. This band was starting. And then after a few months, all of a sudden he's like, well, I'm leaving next month. You're taking over. And I was like, what? And I was still 17 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was working in clubs all over South Louisiana. I mean, it was a cover band. They were a really good band, but we were all... I mean, I'd leave school and go get a U-Haul truck, load the equipment, and drive to Galliano or Buras or Port Allen up by Baton Rouge and do a gig and load the truck again.
Man, I can only imagine what your friends were thinking. Yeah, he just disappears into this giant U-Haul van. I don't get it. I don't know. He never talks about anything like that.
Well, what was funny was, like, prior to that, I was like at every football game in high school. I'd be there. I'd be at every event. I had a ton, and then every weekend, Friday and Saturday, I was gone. I was mixing a band at 17 years old.
I
couldn't legally be in the venue I was playing because they were bars. So, but we had fun. I learned a lot, and then boom, I just kept going.
I love that, though. The first experience you had was, hey, kid, get over here. Watch this.
Yeah, if you're going to learn, you're going to learn from the beginning. I'm going to show you how to make a cable.
Speaking
and that's how everybody should really learn it. If you're going to go into
hands-on,
that business, I mean, even a guitar player or somebody should know how to make a guitar cable and know what they do and why they do what they do.
Especially people who care about their guitars.
Yeah. Or care about just what they do in general. Is if you're going to be a guitar player, you need to know your trade.
Yep.
Yeah, you might be able to play great, but know what happens when that signal comes out of that guitar, down that cable into that amplifier. Same thing with me. I know what happens when we talk into a mic or sing into a mic, or a mic picks up a drum sound and goes down the cables into the mixer, out of the mixer, to the amps, to the PA. I understand what that does.
I try my best to understand all that.
You try what?
I try my best to understand all that.
It takes a lot. I mean...
It's a lot.
Had I done it all over again, I would have learned a whole lot more about electrical engineering when I was young.
I actually want to take electrical engineering. It just seems something that'd be interesting and useful in a household.
Much more than like when I took Spanish or something.
Especially in the South, man. We have so much stuff that just breaks for no reason.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine that.
Like, seriously?
Well, let's see what kind of...
It's been taped up for like 2 weeks. It hasn't fallen down.
And that's... Oh, well.
It's expensive tape, too. That's nice tape.
It's not bad tape.
Anyways, now we've been talking, you specifically have been talking up and bringing up a lot of names and some memories, and so honestly, with a man with as much experience as you have, you definitely have some good stories, some good like memories, like maybe 3 that you would want to share that are funny but also PG.
Funny. I have good memories. Where like doing things that other people only imagine doing and go, God, you got to meet so and so, or you got to, you know, stand on the side of the stage or mix, you know, things like that. You got to travel with Dr. John. I mean, Dr. John was, you know, loved in New Orleans and in the music business. And I mean, I got to hear stories from him firsthand, whether it was even before I worked with him. You know, I was friends with him. That's one reason I got the job with him.
Cool.
Was I knew him from, you know, just doing shows with him, and his tour manager before me, we became friends, and he was leaving. He's like, you want to do it? I'm like, yeah.
That's really one nice aspect, is that you usually make friends along the way in that kind of industry, because people who do music often or not find a way to relate to each other because of the fact that they like music.
That was the biggest part of when I worked. I was the production manager at the House of Blues here. I'm the guy that reopened the place after Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, wait,
as
really?
far as production, yes. I mean, we had a general manager who was the boss, and we had a talent buyer and all, but
I never imagined doing any of that.
I was a sound engineer there, and then after the hurricane happened, the production manager who had been there from day one moved out to California. He's still real good. He's back here now, but he's a good friend of mine. But I was offered the job on November 30th of 2005, which Katrina was August 29th.
Yeah.
So I was officially made the new production manager, and they said, we're going to send you to Cleveland to train with their production manager. Yeah, they had a real good production manager at the Cleveland House of Blues.
I was going to say, you would think that they would have, you know, maybe some guy in like Texas or something to come on.
Well, a lot of this was what I kind of laughed about this, because it was December. They sent me to Cleveland in December, okay, for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
When other people get promoted, like in sales or restaurant management in the House of Blues chain, they usually get sent to LA or Myrtle Beach.
You got sent to Cleveland.
I got sent to Cleveland in December because they had a really good production manager at that venue. And I remember
walking around in 5 trench coats.
They had me in a hotel 2 blocks away from the Cleveland House of Blues, and I'd get up and get dressed to, you know, go down to start the day with the production team there, and I'd walk down the street with the snow blowing in my face, and just like, everybody else gets to go to Vegas or LA. I'm in Cleveland.
Tony got to go to the beach. Are you kidding me? I got sent to Cleveland.
But going back to what you were asking, and I know you want some stories out of me, but the best part of that was like developing relationships. We were talking about, I was friends with Dr. John before I worked with him. Mac is his real name. And I still have friends in this business that I became friends because I dealt with them when they would come through the House of Blues. If you want to know a story, and it's not anything fantastic, but a lot of people get thrilled meeting their heroes or
Their idols.
Yeah. And when you're in the business, you don't really do that. 'Cause even if you're thrilled to death, you kind of lay back and keep cool. Yeah. Well, we were having a big event, and we had bands playing in 3 different places there. The 2 music rooms and out in the Voodoo Garden in the back of the House of Blues. And it was packed. It was, and a friend of mine was there, and I was working. I'm running around like a crazy man. But yeah, my stage managers would usually run the shows.
Yep.
But I was still,
Quite
this was
literally.
a big thing, so I had to be there for it. She texts me and she says, Scotty Moore is here. Now, you're probably not going to know who Scotty Moore is, but Scotty Moore was Elvis's original guitar player. And I was just like, whoa, where is he? And I go, I find her, and she points him out. I'm like, yep, that's Scotty Moore. So a little while later, hour and a half maybe, I'm downstairs out on Decatur Street in front of the building. And which I would walk out of the building a lot just to like breathe.
Clear your head.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go back in.
So I walk out there, and I turn and look, and there's Scotty Moore.
He's just walking straight at you.
Well, he's just standing there waiting for the promoter of the event had like a van to run people back and forth to their hotels. Yeah. So he's with his lady friend, and they're just standing there, the 2 of them, and I'm like, I will never, ever get a chance to meet Scotty Moore again.
Yeah, might as well.
I walked over to him, told him who I was, told him what I did there, and had a 5-minute conversation just about stuff.
Which is a huge influential figure.
Shortly before that, a few years before I met him, which was probably about 2007, I'm saying, he had a stroke, so he couldn't play guitar anymore. He was brought in by the promoter of the event to see some of his friends who were playing the event. It was the Ponderosa Stomp, and just because he knew all these guys, so he got flown in, got to visit with them. He couldn't play, obviously.
It was the boys. He wanted to see the boys.
He was in great shape considering he had a stroke. He couldn't play guitar anymore, and he had some memory loss. So he's telling me stories. And he's looking to his lady friend. I say lady friend because I'm pretty sure he never married her. But she had been with him for years and years. So she's filling in the blanks. And I'm just sitting there thinking, Scotty Moore is telling me about when he was playing in California. And I'm just like, and I'm remaining cool the whole time. And then the van comes up and we say goodbye. Nice meeting you, blah, blah, blah. They leave, and I turn around, and there's like one of our music hall supervisors and security guys and all there, and I just flipped out, and they're like, "Ace, are you okay?" And I'm like, they had no idea who this guy was. To me, he's like one of the guys that invented rock and roll, and you know, people always want to be like a star or something, and there's a saying that is, who's it attributed to? What's his face? Guitar player for the Rolling Stones, who's older than dirt. I'm drawing a blank on a super famous guy's name.
Don't worry, we share something common.
Yeah. Yes. And
what was that?
But Keith Richards. Thank you, off camera.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Weird Draft.
Keith Richards basically said when he was growing up, everybody wanted to be Elvis. He goes, I wanted to be Scotty Moore. And that's how I felt. Like, without Scotty Moore, there wouldn't have been a Keith Richards. Without a Keith Richards, there might not have been a Rolling Stones. Without Rolling Stones, there probably wouldn't have been the New York Dolls. Without the, it's just...
I don't like where this is going.
Well, thank God there was Scotty Moore and everybody else that helped create music like that. So that's a long story, but that's the type of stories I have from my career in music. Not so much wild things happening. When you tour, especially now, it's such a business now. It's all business.
You got to be on your game. You gotta know how to work the business.
One tour I did, I was with Frank Zappa's son, Dweezil Zappa. And, I'm wrong tour. I was with, of all...
You've had a lot of them, all right?
Death Clock. The cartoon band Death Clock. I was with I was with the human version of Death Clock. We were on a tour. We were co-headlining with Mastodon. So it was a pretty heavy tour.
Man.
It was 4 bands on the tour. We were all heavy death metal stuff. And at the end of the tour, where you would think there would be this big party,
it was just like, yeah, see you guys.
We were all kind of standing out in the area of the venue. He's sitting there going, what the hell is she talking about?
Yeah, he knows.
I hope we got that on camera.
Are we filming?
Yes!
Okay.
So obviously this is a little bit of a complicated field to get into, and obviously people can be interested in it, such as myself. And for somebody who has so much experience, I bet that you would have some good advice for anybody looking to get into the industry that you're in. Wouldn't you?
I was waiting for the actual question mark to hit, but you just opened and left it open.
Yep.
Learn how to make a guitar cable.
Seriously?
Now, going back to that, and I've heard this advice for people from people in a much higher status of this business than myself. Do anything you can. Knock on doors. Go if you want to be a sound person, if you want to tour with bands, if you want to learn about live sound, live audio, and you have a audio company in your town, go aggravate them enough
that they'll give you a chance.
They'll give you a chance. And by aggravate, I mean say, hey, can I do anything? Do y'all need a hand? Move cases for free if you have to, if they allow it. Some places won't allow it because of liability reasons, but volunteer to do what needs to be done, whether it's like helping it out in the warehouse, and then eventually a job's going to come up where they need somebody and they're going to go, hey, can you do this? And then say, yeah, I can do it. You might not be able to do it, but do it anyway.
That's when you start like meeting people and learning things from people who are far more experienced.
And there are people that did that for sound companies who eventually became audio engineers for that sound company and head out. Now they might be with that same sound company, or they might be with somebody even bigger, and they're still doing it. And they started by washing the truck or pushing cases.
By asking to sweep.
Or when a show comes back in, there's a bunch of cables in a trunk that you pick everything up. You're in a rush to get out. Those cables aren't really neat and rolled
organized.
Right. They might start out being the guy in the warehouse.
You're just
redoing all the cables and making them nice and neat. That's what to do. That's how to get into the business. There's schools that teach all that. All that, like, teach you the technical part of it, teach you why sound is what it is, how it works, the science of it, and that's all good and fine. If you know that and you can get your foot in the door, more power to you. I wish I knew more of the technical end of it when I was starting out, but again, I got taught how to make a cable. And I went from there.
Hey, kid.
And like not only did he explain to me how to make the cable, he explained to me why there's 3 leads in this cable. And why on a guitar cable, a 1/4-inch cable as we call it, there's only 2. And he told me what they do. Yeah. So read and learn as much as you can, and always make yourself available for something. That's how to get into the business.
Grab that experience.
Yep.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
And if they ask you if you know how to set up that PA,
Sure.
yep, and then figure it out. Or just say, yeah, I know how to do it, but exactly how do you want me to do it? Is there a certain way you want? Yeah, so that's the trick to that.
Gotta be smooth, gotta be subtle.
Yeah, there's plenty of people in the business that are only in there because they
Took that initiative.
exaggerated a bit and said they could do what they really didn't know about doing. So, but they learned and they're successful, and that's the goal. And then the other thing is networking, just as many people as you can meet.
Yep.
You know,
Connections make business work.
I'm not going to say more so in this business, but yeah, pretty much in music. Whether you're a musician or a sound guy or a lighting guy, the whole business, it's people you know and how you treat them. And another thing, you're going to see them on the way up and the way down. So always be nice to them. So
that can just be a rule of thumb for everybody. Be nice to people.
Yeah.
They'll make you a happier person and everybody else a happier person. I hope people were taking notes, by the way. I was. I hope everybody else was taking notes on that. Write that stuff down so we can eventually become extremely successful using that said advice.
There's a lot of information out there nowadays. I mean, when I started, no, there wasn't.
Exactly.
I wish I had learned more of the technical end, like I said, but now it's all out there. You can sit online and learn everything.
I still think experience and hands-on work is very key too, especially with things like engineering. I never learned anything in engineering through a screen. I was always out working in the shop with my dad. And just like with you learning how these cables worked, you were right there, up with it, right next to the giant solderer.
There you go. When the whole pandemic thing happened and I had zero work and I was sitting around my house.
Oh, it must have drove you mad.
Yeah, but I decided then that I would learn more. One big thing I do in when I say corporate work, I mean convention stuff.
Yeah, paperwork.
In doing audio at conventions.
Oh, okay.
And generally in conventions, you have a big one. You have A1 and A2. And the A1's the main sound guy. The A2 is the guy that kind of helps out and assists, but he's also important because he's dealing with the wireless microphones. That's a whole science in itself right there. So I told myself, I'm going to learn more about wireless while I have this downtime. And I can't count the number of videos and papers I've read. But I learned a whole lot more, but I haven't touched it yet. So once I get back out there, I got to put this to good use.
A lot of people use quarantine as a time to just be like, well, I got nothing better to do. What about that one thing that I remember being interested about in like 7th grade that I never thought about again?
A lot of people did that. I have a friend who's a guitar tech. As a matter of fact, he's Slash's guitar tech. He started woodworking.
Really?
During the pandemic. He's building things now that are amazing. He posts them on Facebook.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and his name's Ace too, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. The Ace Brothers.
So.
I've had a lot of fun talking with you, but unfortunately, I only have one more question for you. And it's a question that we ask everybody here. It's one that I love a lot. It's very important to me because we get so many unique and interesting responses. But I think we're going to get something really special out of you. And let me just ask it, if you can go back in time to when you were 16 and give yourself one piece of advice, only one, what would you say to yourself?
Honestly, I would say, and this is just kind of corny and kind of cliche, just study harder. I wish I had. I wish I learned more. And got a more formal education than I did. I recommend that. When I was a kid, this is a true story real quick, I graduated from high school and I was working with a band, but I mean, it was just a local little band. I didn't know what I really wanted to do for a living. And I stayed. After I graduated, I didn't go right to college. The second semester, the January semester, I graduated in May, and then the following January, I started out at University of New Orleans on a Monday, and on Wednesday, my guitar player told me, he came over to the house and said, "We're definitely moving to New York." And I said, "Good, I won't do my homework." And that was my 3-day career at the University of New Orleans.
3 days?
3 days at UNO. Wow. Eventually later, I was living in the Northeast. I did get a 2-year degree from a 2-year school up there. I went back to school eventually. I think I was 22 or 23.
You wish you would have taken it more seriously.
Yeah, I wish I had. And had I known, I was, like I said earlier, about learning about electronics, and so I wish I had done that. But that's, if you know, most people don't know what they're going to do when they're 16.
Yeah.
If I knew when I was 16 that I was going to be doing this when I was, I would have, gotten a 4-year degree in something appropriate with what I do now. But that's about it. That's the only thing I can recommend.
Honestly,
and have fun doing it too.
I think that's super reasonable, honestly. Yeah. A lot of success stories come from people who were from lesser communities or feel as if they didn't have a direction and then found their direction. Like, especially the pop star, like, celebrity blow up stories. I came from like nothing and then made my way up and struggled along the way. But honestly, education and knowledge is so empowering for whatever you do. Literally anything you do, if you have knowledge in what you do, that gives you a leg up on anybody who doesn't. It's what makes things right. And honestly, I think that you know that best.
Hopefully.
I would hope so.
Yeah. So anyway,
well,
that's what I have to say.
It's been wonderful talking with you, man. I'm just very happy to have been able to do this interview with you.
Good. Enjoyed it.
I really appreciate you taking the time to come out to our show today, and please feel free to come back anytime
for part 2.
Part 2.
Thank you.